Back, brothers and sisters, you're listening to the National Action Network Saturday Action Rally, coming to you live on WLIB 1190 AM in New York, streaming to you at www.nationalactionnetwork.net, and we are here live in the House of Justice, 106 West 145th Street. I'd like you to get on your feet right now for the president and founder of the National Action Network, the Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
What do we want?
Justice.
What do we want?
Justice.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
When do we want it?
Now.
When do we want it?
Now.
Hug the person next to you, tell them you love them.
Never give up and never give in. Change will come. Keep it going. Trouble and trials, home and home. God on our side, nothing but pride. Hold on, please roll. A better day is coming.
National Action Network Change Choir, give them a big hand. Give them a big hand. Certainly we're happy to be with you another Saturday morning at the Saturday Action Rally. For you that are here at the House of Justice, 106 West 145th Street in the village of Harlem. And for you that are listening live on 1190 WLIB AM in New York, and you that are watching live stream around the country at www.nationalactionnetwork.net, we're happy to be with you another Saturday morning where the action is. Give a hand to our presider, Attorney Michael Hardy. And we will be going live nationwide television in 11 minutes with our Impact family. Let me re-emphasize, though, that we are now in about 60 days, little more than 60-day countdown to our national convention. And we want people to be ready. If there ever was a time that we need to convene nationwide, it is now. And we have everybody that you could think of, from Bernie Sanders to Liz Warren to Kamala Harris, all coming to National Action Network's convention this year. We need to have a plan for these midterms and how we protect and preserve the vote. and we need to have a plan for how we deal economically. I came in town earlier this week and did a panel kicking off the Wall Street Project with Reverend Jackson, one of my mentors. One of the things that we do not deal with enough is the correlation between politics and economics. Folk go into politics to protect economic interests. Too often, we go into politics to have a title and a job. So our political representatives too often are just happy to be named something and to get on the payroll. And others exploit the economic interests of the community and sponsor them, rather than they go in and represent economic interests in our community. Well, what do I mean by that? If you have a multi-billion-dollar pension fund in the city, and you don't have black money managers managing any of that money, and it never even comes up from you, then who are you in City Hall in Albany representing? They take our money. This is what I was saying the other night at Wall Street Project. They take our money, pension funds. Many of y'all got a job every week or every other week when you get paid, they take your pension out, right? Whether you got a retirement fund, whatever you call it, they take your 401k, whatever it is, they take it out, and you never ask, well, who manages that? They put that in a fund. They hire money managers that manages that. And the money managers then invest the money. One of the reasons you see people getting all nervous with the Dow Jones going up and down, because some of that investment is in stock. So folks went running around talking about, oh Lord, the stock market going down, I could lose everything I got. Well, I remember when I was younger and the stock market went down, long as food stamps and welfare wouldn't go down, it didn't bother me. But if you invest in stock, they were concerned. Well, they also invest in development. Am I right? So these developers that are gentrifying our community, they are not using their money. They're using investment dollars from pension funds. That's your money. So not only is it bad that grandma is losing her house with eminent domain, what adds insult to injury is grandma is paying for it and don't even know it. So we've got to redo this discussion this year in politics. Is not only do we want more power, we want the power to bring home economic power to us. Attorney Hardy and our chairman, Reverend Dr. Franklin Richardson, and I met with 14 of the top black money finance people. We do it every year, and they help NAN, they donate to NAN. All of them, one of them worth $4 billion. Cannot get any of the pension funds. Some of the unions that have 80% black and Latino membership, and no blacks or Latinos managing the pension fund. It's your money. And they give us pacification. And we've got to stop dealing with that. So I want y'all to go and write to the website and be ready for our National Action Network convention, www.nationalactionnetwork.net, or call 1-877-626-4651. Let me also say that I want to congratulate our crisis director, Reverend Kevin McCall. He has been working hard this week and showing leadership around this MS-224 case that he's spoken about, and we're going to talk about another situation. And he will, you know, one of the things that I keep saying is that leadership is not based on your ambition. Leadership is based on your agenda. I don't care what you think you are. If you do not execute, you are not that. And he has shown that he will get into the field and do the work. Problem is we have too many wannabe leaders with clean hands and dirty hearts. Real leaders have dirty hands and clean hearts. If you're afraid to get your hands dirty, you're afraid to get out there and do the gut work, you ain't never gonna lead. I was out west, got talking about one day I want Red Mal to anoint me. I can't do nothing but give you some greasy water. Ain't no anointing, ain't nobody anointed me. Nobody can anoint you, you got to earn leadership. Well, I'm waiting on them to pass the baton. What do you think, this is a relay race in school? This is work. If you want the baton, you got to run the race, pull up next to the one with the baton and pull ahead so the crowd will say, give him the baton so we can win the race. You sit up on the stand, suntanning, talking about somebody pass you something. You better duck if I pass you something. It might be a bat. Nobody passed nobody nothing. So McCall's doing the work. Why is he doing the work? Because he's a crisis director. If he can't handle a crisis, then I'll get another crisis director. Well, we run around. I remember I had one crisis director told me, Red Mal, everybody just keep coming in here, I got a problem. Well, what do you think you here for? Like a lady would work for Attorney Hardy once. Said, I don't know if I can do this job. Everybody coming here is in trouble. You work in a lawyer's office. If I wasn't in trouble, you wouldn't have a job. So he has done a diligent job, but in the insult, see, the other thing is you got to be able to discern issues. So he'll call me, I'll be somewhere and say, Reverend, I just want you to know, boom, 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 because he doesn't do anything with the network's name that we don't sign off on. So he'll talk to me or Hardy, and he said, this is the issue. I said, why is it an issue? And he can tell me. So I know he understands this, because a lot of y'all think stuff is issues that ain't no issue. You having a toe ache because you stumped the bed in the middle of the night going to the bathroom and didn't see the wall, that is not a crisis. To insult the educational development of our children by telling a teacher they can't talk Black history in Black History Month is an issue. And MS-224 need to know we stand with this teacher and we will be there to do whatever we need to do. Now I want to make it clear, we have an organization, so McCall handle crisis, other people handle other things. But make no mistake about it, the whole organization is with it. So don't think because I didn't come out there that doesn't mean we ain't with it. We're big enough that we can send McCall. But if you don't get right, I will be there and I'll bring everybody with me. This is a disgrace and an insult to the educational process in this city. And we will not let this teacher be punished for doing what they're supposed to do, and that is educating the children. And anybody against that, we need to deal with as an insult. And that's why you have civil rights groups. That's our job. Teacher don't need to do the protest. Let her teach. We got it. You gonna wish y'all had talked to her. Cause I ain't got as much training as my daughters. I don't understand a whole lot. Don't explain a whole lot to me. I'm getting old. I don't hear a lot. I don't understand that. All I know is you're gonna leave it alone, or we gonna turn things a different way. That's all. Which way you wanna go? I told principals not long ago in St. Louis, look here. They tell you that I like media, I will be in the paper tomorrow with you. So just say no, so I can put you on the front page. Let's go. Well, let me explain. No, don't explain nothing. It's yes or no. I'm gonna make you famous. I'm in the fame business for folk like you. We are minutes away. I want to also congratulate those that work with them in the crisis team and that do the hard work. It means a lot. We're joined now, we're live on Impact Television all over the country. Give a hand to our Impact family. You that are watching, you that need and have a crisis, a problem, you that may just need to talk to somebody, pray with somebody. You can call our hotline right now. People are sitting by the hotline at 1-877-626-4651, 1-877-626-4651. I want you also to get ready to come to New York for our National Action Network Convention, April 18th to the 21st, all sessions free. We're gonna deal with voter rights. Former Attorney General Eric Holder will be with us. Senator Kamala Harris from California, Senator Cory Booker from New York, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Senator Bernie Sanders, Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, all across the board, Jim Clyburn. We're gonna deal with the business people that bought Essence Magazine, black company from Trinidad. He's gonna be with us. You need to be with National Action Network Convention. We're gonna have people that we are honoring our women. Sister Trana Burke of the whole Me Too movement will be with us. Angela Rye's gonna host the women's luncheon. You see on CNN, we honoring Joy Reid. It's gonna be a big convention, but you need to pre-register. And you can go right now to the site www.nationalactionnetwork.net or call that toll-free number. Somebody's stressed out, call right now, 1-877-626-4651. Our crisis director, Reverend Kim McCall, called me earlier this week and told me about a situation where there was a young man in a school in Queens that they have you put your name on your sweat shirt. So your name Al, you could put Al S. Your name Barry, you could put Barry, whatever. This young man's name is Malcolm Xavier Cone. And he put his name on his sweatshirt. Teacher said, you cannot use that name. Why would you use a role model like Malcolm X? First of all, before you even get to the insult on Malcolm, it's his name. So the first violation is you're asking him to deny his name. Secondly, his mama and daddy gave him his name. And no school has the right to disregard or disrespect the decision of parents. You wouldn't do that to other parents, and you're not gonna do it to black parents in our community. Your name streets in this city after slave owners. And we ride down those streets. And you're going to have the arrogance to tell parents when they can name their child and whether their child can put that on their sweatshirt. Then tell me what name others are. Somebody got named George. Well, that reminds me of George Wallace. Take the sweatshirt off. I mean, we can all play that game. It's about respecting the identity of this child and respecting his parents. And I told Reverend McCall, no, go on with that as hard as you can. And he's been there. I wanted this young man and his family to know that we are with them. Reverend McCall has gone out there and spoke with the heads of the school, and it seems to me that they seem to have a hearing deficiency. So maybe a lot of us need to go and turn the volume up. Because this is not about your opinion of our heroes. This is about the right of parents to name their child and a child to express themselves. What kind of education do you have if you cannot be who you are? Education is to enhance me, not to try and redo me. So I want you to welcome to the House of Justice this young man. Come on up here, Malcolm Xavier Combs and his mother and dad. Y'all come on up. Let him know the community's with him. Give him a big hand. Give him a big hand. And Malcolm, let me tell you something. Mother, dad, because, I want them to say something, and McCall say something, but because I want you to know that one of the teachers talked about how Malcolm X was a terrorist. Malcolm X was a hero. Malcolm X represented how we could rise out of what was our forced circumstance and environment and make bad decisions and reform ourselves and be global leaders. Malcolm represented the ability to redeem and build. And we found our pride and manhood in him because he proved that we can be broken and be put back together again. And because you're named the same as Malcolm, I wanted you to meet the daughter of Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz, Ilyasah Shabazz. And I'm going to have Ilyasah speak in a minute. Ilyasah, by the way, teaches Mr. Christ the King School Authority at John Jay College. Her mama was one of the educators at Medgar. And her mother was the one putting my two daughters in school when they started school. Dr. Shabazz said, no, I don't want them to, because you controversial going to public school. She put them in Johnson Prep, paid the first 2 years, called them her godchildren. So we take a precedent, so talk about Malcolm X, but I want them to see all over the news that the community is standing with this family. Let us hear from Malcolm X. Combs.
I was in AP English when I was called down to the office. They told me to wait in the office till she got there. Once she got there, she told me that she couldn't put my name on the sweater. She said I did not want to be associated with that name. She asked me if that was my real name, and I said yes. Either way, her husband walked into the office, and she said, "This is the new Malcolm X," and she laughed at me, and she laughed at me to her husband. I was silent the whole time because I was just shocked that in this year that she would say something like that. something so insensitive as that. That just really hurt me, and I was just trying to represent Malcolm X because, of course, I love my name. I'd say thank you to the people who've been supporting me. I'd like to say thank you to my brother Mark, sister Mariah. I'd like to thank all the CK students who have been standing by me. And I would just like to thank just everyone for supporting.
Let's hear from his mother.
Hello, good morning. I first would like to say thank you to the National Action Network for taking on this cause with us. Because sometimes these things happen and it goes swept under the rug. And if it wasn't for Reverend Al Sharpton and people like McCall actually bringing attention to this, he would have been another statistic that went home and just was hurt. Now, I actually would like to take a couple of minutes to address Christ the King. They said they wanted to make this and deal with this internally, and that we made it a media issue. Well, I would like to say, Christ the King, you made it a media issue. You made it a media issue when you did not call us as his parents when you thought there was a problem with his name. You made it a media issue when my husband went to the school and was told that the assistant principal was out to lunch, and even if she wasn't, she wouldn't meet with him until he had an appointment. Now, no school should do anything to a child and the parent can't address it that day. So, Christ the King, you made it a media issue when you messed with our son. I also would like to say and refute the school because they say that, they said that that the nickname was not allowed. So now they're making it look as if he and our family are being defiant against it. There is a form. It says last name, first name, and in parentheses, no nicknames. However, after the meeting, they themselves put out a statement saying that they occasionally will allow nicknames. So now you have students walking around with fake names, but you want to deny him his real name. That will not work for him. It will not work for me. It will not work for National Action Network. And I would also like to say that Malcolm X is not controversial, but Christ the King, your administration is.
Give them a hand. Y'all niggas, let them sit up here. Let them sit up here. Y'all have a seat up here. Malcolm might be a preacher. His mama already preaching. Let us hear from the daughter of Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz, Ilyasah Shabazz.
Thank you, Reverend Sharpton. Let's give him a round of applause. Where would we be without him? Today is an important moment where I stand before you to share a true story, which I've shared before, but somehow seems to matter even more in this moment. Because today I stand with a beautiful young man fighting for his dignity and the right of others to do the same. Before this, Malcolm Xavier and countless others bearing witness to their right to matter, there was my father, whom Malcolm Xavier and his family seek to honor. His parents found pride in the legacy of Malcolm X, and so they named their son after Malcolm, so their son would have a life of promise. Isn't that what we all want for our children? In 1965, my mother, my sisters, and I witnessed the political assassination of her husband, our very young father, Malcolm X. And I'm told that my young mother placed her entire body over her babies, over my sisters and me, to protect us from the gunfire, to make certain we could not see our father gunned down. My mother made certain she kept our father's humanity, his love, compassion, and impeccable integrity very integral in our household. In college, I began to learn about the inaccurate portrayals of his character and his work. I began to understand that my mother safeguarded the legacy of her husband, not so he could shine, but so his legacy, for the benefit of future generations, would be realized. Malcolm Xavier. Less than 55 years ago, mass lynchings in our communities across the nation were rampant. Men, women, and children were strung up and hung on tree limbs. It was so rampant, young Malcolm, that a very popular singer, Billie Holiday, was heard on the airwaves. She sang about the strange fruit that hung on many tree limbs, as she said, blowing in the wind. Mobs of bigots and killers terrorized innocent people when all they wanted was simply to exercise their freedom to exist as human beings, to care for their families and loved ones, entitled to every human being. When young people gathered to protest, demonstrate, and march, wanting only to integrate schools and public facilities for a quality lifestyle, for quality housing, employment, and healthcare opportunities, my young father came along and said, just in his 20s, we demand our human rights as your brother. He said, we demand the human rights ordained by God for all people. He was fearless because he loved us, and he believed in our humanity. He believed in true brotherhood and sisterhood, and he believed that every child deserved an opportunity to realize his and her God-given potential. He said that we're miseducated, and he demanded an end to nearly 400 years of historical terror and trauma of his people. What is so controversial about that? But somehow his image, his compassion, and his selfless deeds are distorted. You see, when you teach your children to hate others, you are teaching them to hate themselves. You're teaching them to destroy the moral fiber in our society. He traveled first world, not third world. He traveled first world nations of Africa and Asia, the so-called Middle East, not for vacation, but in search of solutions to the human condition that would want to annihilate and oppress its citizens, that would want to miseducate its own children. There's an African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. And today, we smart, forward-thinking, civilized adults need that village more than ever. We must come together. We must come together. We have to come together and ensure our educational curriculum is inclusive of historical facts, because if we don't do it, no one else is. Right? We can't sit back and complain. We have to make sure that these things happen for the sake of our children. Only we can do that. That had it not been for those enslaved Africans that were terrorized day in and day out for generations upon generations, cultivating a barren land and turning it into a land of milk and honey, not one of us would have the opportunity to call the United States of America, the leader of the free world, our home. We owe it to those great ancestors, all of the founding forefathers and foremothers of this country, the honor of including this information accurately for all of our children to be properly educated once and for all. Young Malcolm Xavier. This experience reminds me of when Malcolm Little was told by a teacher what he should and should not be. The good news is this pivotal moment to speak out against anyone's attempt to minimize you and the people whose legacy you share. God bless you, young man. And for the teacher, we don't blame you, but we invite you to join in being curious beyond the books that are put in front of you about the greatness in each of the children's whose fragile lives you hold in your hands. The time is now to require that educators receive cultural sensitivity training and diverse role models who celebrate intellectual activists like Malcolm X and others from diverse cultures, especially when over a half of the 50 million students from pre-K to 12th grade public schools are children of color. How dare you? Young Malcolm Xavier, we are very proud of you. We are proud of your demonstration of excellence, and we pray that you continue to stand for truth. God bless you. And so we brought you some books that have a nice big X on them. And Yvonne Junelle, have you arrived? I hope you have. Oh, good. Come up front, please. And we have the young lady. Do you want to show him the books? He's got the autobiography of Malcolm X. He's got Malcolm Little, the boy who grew up to become Malcolm X, because his parents instilled good qualities in him for him to be compassionate. We have X, a novel, which was the journey had he not his parents to guide him, and Betty Before X, which, had it not been for Betty, I tell you, we would not be here. And I have to say that this book, Malcolm, Betty Before X, is already in its second print in less than 30 days. So you're in good hands. And then we have Miss Yvonne Junelle. Where are the shirts? Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. And then this is the young lady who designed our X Legacy shirts. Yes, and that's for you, young man. So you wear your X very proud, Mr. Xavier. Okay, thank you.
Give him a big hand. Ilyasa Shabazz. Let me tell you, Malcolm, I wear small now, so you better hold that shirt, because I can fit. Reverend Kevin McCall, I want us to really give him a great applause. Reverend McCall.
This is something that we have to deal with. This is what the National Action Network is for. You know, people have convocations for churches, but in the social justice movement, we got the National Action Network. We dealt with this issue this week. I met with them. I met with the president of the school. When the parents called the office, when I called them, they were shocked that I was going to be able to be at the meeting. They didn't want me there because they wanted to sweep this under the rug. But this is our job at the National Action Network, to bring light to dark issues. And we stand on the forefathers of those are Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King was a peacemaker. And we try to be able to talk to them, to let them know that, listen, we can be able to use this as a moment, as a movement, to be able to unite this country under the leadership of the President Donald Trump. Let us have these cultural conversations, these trainings, and these institutions. Ilyasah Shabazz has offered to come to the school to teach about Malcolm X, to let them know that he is not controversial. So this is what the National Action Network is for, is dealing with these issues. So wherever you at, if you need us, just call us and tell them 2 words: we're coming.
Reverend Kevin McCall, let me say this. I think that a couple of things we need to learn from this around the country. One is that in Black History Month, for people not to know the weight and gravity of the historic contribution of Malcolm X shows how we do need more education. And these are educators. The fact of the matter is, if you study Malcolm's life, her grandfather, Malcolm's father, was a victim of terrorism. Malcolm was not a terrorist. He was the son of a victim of terrorism and grew up knowing that terrorism robbed him of his daddy. So you need to read the story, especially if you want to educate children, because to educate them wrong is to miseducate them. Secondly, no educational institution has the right to defy the wishes of parents on how they're going to name their children. We're in a day that you fight to keep Confederate statues up, yet you want to use a school teacher to defy what a mother and daddy named their child. We're not going to stand by and allow that to be swept under the rug. And I admire his parents, because we don't know how many other situations where kids were intimidated and parents were disrespected and nobody put it out there. These parents said, "Not my child." And I don't know what grade he's in, but he's got a degree now in self-respect from his parents. But let me say this while we still alive, because I got to deal with the theology of it. Not only does the school Christ the King School, that's the name of the school, not only do y'all need to read about Malcolm, you may need to read about Christ. Because if you're going to name your school Christ the King, you need to examine why Christ is King. Christ came for people like Malcolm that were broken and desolate and said, you can be born again. You need to live up to the name. He didn't have on the wrong name. Maybe you're not living up to the name you wear. Somewhere I read, I came to save which is lost, give sight to the blind, to heal the broken heart. Christ didn't come for you highfalutin, educated, high pedigreed. He came to take those that and made Malcolm Littles and build them up to be a Malcolm X. And if you can't learn growth and redemption in Christ the King school, then where you gonna learn it at? The audacity of you, the arrogance, and the disrespect. So yeah, they need cultural sensitivity, but they also need some theological training. Let me also, while I'm going down that route, I grew up in the King movement. And on Sunday, Ilyasa, they had what they call a Super Bowl. Now, I was part of those that supported Kaepernick. So I looked at the opening and then I said, I ain't gonna watch all of this. Because I think that until they sell Kaepernick, we got to be very judicious. But I was shocked when there was a commercial by Chrysler trucks using Martin Luther King's voice, talking about service, and then talking about how they use that to sell trucks. So I'm seeing the distortion of a school with Malcolm X and a car company misusing Martin Luther King's voice. Now, they say they paid for it from the estate. Reverend Bernice, Martin Luther King's daughter, and Martin III said they did not authorize it. Now, let me explain that, because a lot of us get into arguing and fighting, don't know what we're talking about. An estate that is authorized, when you got families and differences, can do things that the family does not have notice or permission. It's been 11 years since James Brown died. There's a James Brown estate that authorized a movie on him, authorized documentaries. His children has had no say-so because the estate is not settled. All right? Now, the fact that these people would use Martin Luther King to sell trucks is to trivialize the moral standing of who he is. Because young folks, Malcolm's age and our young people in there and here, like Dominic Johnson and others, they cannot think Martin Luther King was a huckster selling product rather than a social agent that changed American social order. Now, if you, Reverend Charles Williams, who heads our Michigan State Chapter National Expansion, he has gone to Chrysler. They're dealing with it at Saturday Action Rally in Detroit this morning, saying that since you want to use Dr. King's voice, why don't you do what Dr. King said? Dr. King said that corporations ought to have blacks on the board, or to bank in black banks, or to do contracts with black businesses. Since you like King so much, Chrysler, we want to see the board members of Chrysler, where you bank at, who you do contracts with. You not gonna hustle Dr. King. You may have come with what you thought was cute, but we coming after you to make you like the voice you use in terms of Dr. King. There's a part in the Bible that says, choose you this day who you shall serve, who you will serve. And then there's a conclusion, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. There is a critical crossroad that everybody has in life. You got to choose at some point whether you want to be a servant or whether you want to be served. Most of us confuse servant and being served. Many preachers rather be served than be a servant. Sit back on your throne, folk serving you and never out serving the community. Jesus said, if you love me, feed my sheep. You are not called to the ministry to sit up on a throne and have folk worship God by pampering you. And you become a pampered, cuddled con man with a collar. You were called to serve the Malcolm Xaviers of this world. You get up and sing in church, I want to be like Jesus. Well, show me where Jesus had folk running around dealing with his comfort. Jesus stopped and healed the blind man. Jesus stopped and raised the man laying by the pool of Bethesda. Jesus served people, fed the hungry. Jesus didn't get up on a mountain and talk stuff and sell me a DVD. Did you get my tape from Mount of Olives? Paul, Peter, y'all should have seen me dump the house. That's serving yourself. And those that serve themselves, you get your reward here. People clap for you, proud of yourself. What they going on to clap for somebody else? Made you a little bit of money, bought you a car, it'll be out of style in 3 years. Got you a nice house, but the bank gonna come get it when your little wave is over. But those that serve, the Bible says will have eternal life. That's why I remind young men and women that growing up in Nan, servants are eternal because service will always be appreciated. Martin Luther King was killed 50 years ago this April. Yet every January 2nd Monday, the whole nation closes down to remember his birthday. Malcolm X, y'all out there at Christ the King, went from one as a child that had to deal with dope to a prophet of hope that his face is on the U.S. postal stamp. And he's lauded and applauded all over the world. If his name and face is good enough for a U.S. postal stamp, it's good enough for his sweatshirt. Martin or Malcolm didn't make that part of history being served. Martin nor Malcolm lived in huge mansions. Malcolm had a home out in Queens. Middle-class neighborhood trying to do something for his family, and they blew the house up with his daughters and wife in it. Died with the house in ruins. Martin had a little house in West Atlanta. They were not living to be served. But the richest guy in the 60s, they had the biggest fleet of cars and had the biggest wardrobe. Don't nobody remember him or his birthday. Nobody got him on no stamp. Nobody cared nothing about him. And even his own grandchildren don't stop. Because he got all that he was getting while he was here and probably lost that. Live for more than being served. Don't get me wrong, live a comfortable life, be blessed, but don't let it in there. Be blessed to bless somebody else. I go to Brownsville where I grew up and where McCall grew up. And I every once in a while run into some of the people I grew up with. Most of them is either locked up or dropped down. But I did one guy still hang around, I won't say which project, doing with my age group, known each other since then, and he in the streets, and think he doing well. I saw him, I went out to McCall, they had a nice event for McCall's birthday, and I'm riding out past and saw him. I said, man, how you doing? You still out? Man, still doing what I do. I see you on TV, you always was into that, and I'm always into this. I said, didn't you go away? Yep, did 8 years, but I'm back out here throwing them rocks. I know what to do, I'm doing good, Al. I said, how you doing good? Man, I got me a brand new Lexus, let me show you. Cost me almost 100 grand. Got 12 tuxedos at home. Got some of the best threads. I said, that's doing well. Yeah. Why do you need a $100,000 car to jump in and out of potholes in Brownsville? What do you need 12 tuxedos for? Nobody invites you to a banquet. You live for getting stuff you can't even use. And the children that you bring in the world are ashamed that you're even their daddy. Your Yasa and her sisters had to grow up without a daddy. But they could be proud and throw their heads up and shoulders back in any country in the world and say, I am Malcolm X's daughter. I am Betty Shabazz's daughter. She gave a lot of books and a lot of stuff to Malcolm Xavier, one of the greatest men that ever walked the earth. I minded where McCall is. They did a movie on Malcolm. Spike Lee did. In fact, I did a cameo in it, even though I wasn't old enough to be around at that time. And at the end of the movie, Spike had children. We need to get this to the folk out at Malcolm Xavier School. They had children saying, I am Malcolm X. But the thing that the principal need to see and the teachers need to see is at the end of the movie, at the very end of the Malcolm X movie by Spike, when the children were saying, I am Malcolm X, one of the greatest men that ever lived stood there, Nelson Mandela. And Nelson Mandela said, I am Malcolm X. If Christ the King does not deal with Malcolm Xavier and deal with cultural sensitivity, then I'm going to be a guest speaker outside and have an I am Malcolm X rally. If you won't come to your senses, then we'll bring some senses to you. I do house calls. Because somewhere our children must learn that you don't have to be other than what somebody else is comfortable with. You don't have to be somebody else to develop into the full manifestation of who you are. Be who you are. Be who your mama named you. Be what circumstance you come out of. And out of that you can become and will become great as who you are. For generations we had to act like we were somebody else to be accepted. I'm not trying to be you. I am who I am. And I'm going to grow and be what God made me be. This whole notion of being accepted, being certified by others, is an ultimate expression of white supremacy. Like, unless we sanction you, you're not legitimate. First civil rights battle I had in my career wasn't when I was 12 when George Bird basket. It was I was 5, 6. I went to school, went to PS 134, Malcolm in Queens. It's before my father left, we was in Queens. And I used to write on my homework, Reverend Al Sharpton. I'm in 3rd, 4th grade, because I was a boy preacher at Washington Temple. Teacher, I remember her name. She said, "You can't write that." I said, "What do you mean I can't write that?" She said, "You're not a preacher, you're a kid. You're in the 3rd grade." I said, "Yeah, but I was called to preach. I preach at Washington. I preach for hundreds of people. I don't care what they do, you can't write that." I kept writing. She sent for my mother. And my mother said, "No, Miss So-and-so, he's a boy preacher at Washington Temple." She was so adamant that she went to the principal, and the principal sent for my bishop. And Bishop Washington had to explain to him that they had licensed me in the Church of God in Christ as a boy preacher. I preached at the World's Fair in 64 at 9 years old. I preached to more folk than any teacher in the school ever looked in front of. I'm not going to let you define me. And the principal said, "Well, then leave him alone." I won the battle of self-definition before I was 10 years old. And I've not let them define me ever since. Every case I fought, they called me all kind of names, but they didn't know I learned long time ago. I'm not what you call me, I'm what I respond to. And when you call me a name, you must not be talking to me. Reverend Al controversial, Reverend Al checkered past, Reverend Al divider, Reverend Al race baiter. You ain't talking to me. You confused. I know who I am. And that's why I'm gonna fight for young men like him to know who they are. I don't care what your teaching is. I don't care what your culture is. I don't care what your comfort level is. He is Malcolm Xavier Combs, and never, ever should he bow or apologize for it. So it's time, in the spirit of this young boy, for you to quit having your complexes and embrace who you are. Your mama was who she was, your daddy was who they was. Embrace who you are. You God's child. I don't care where you come from, what your background is. I am God's child. I was born to be somebody. You're not going to redirect me. I'm on my way to greatness. I'm on my way to power. Up, you mighty race. Up, you mighty race. Up, you mighty race. We can. We can. We can if we will. Everybody's singing.